welcome to It Started at Surrey, Stag Radios podcast where Surrey Alumni return to campus for an evening of networking and reading to share where their journey began and where they are now. I'm your host, Sofia Varela, and today I'm joined with...
Rufaro Faith Mazarua.
So obviously you were a student at Surrey. Can you tell us what kind of course you did, how it affected your career, what happened?
Yeah, so I was at University of Surrey from 2016 to 2020 and I did English literature with creative writing because I loved books and I was like, I love books and I want to write a book. And so I was here for 4 years and one thing that I really made like a concerted effort to do while I was here is try and do loads of internships and work experience. I was very much like, find this and this, which is really helpful because it meant that I was able to do a really fun placement year at a TV company working in publicity. And while I was doing it, I was like, I'm really enjoying, it was HBO. So I was really enjoying working on all of these shows and working on all these ideas. But like every single time I go into the office, I'm like, I want to make this stuff. Like, let me write. So when I was at university, because I was doing creative writing, I'd be writing lots of short stories, really like the starts of ideas, essays, all sorts of stuff with the hope of eventually writing my thing. I did my dissertation as a creative writing dissertation, the start of a novel. And then when I graduated and I was back at home in the pandemic, I was like, I want to like write an idea. I want to like take one of these ideas that's been sitting in my laptop and actually write it into a novel. And eventually I wrote the start of a novel that became my first novel, Let the Games Begin.
So tell us a bit about your novel. It's called Skate Till You Make It. Tell us a bit about it. What's it about for the people at home?
So my second novel, Skate Till You Make It, is a rom-com that's set at the Winter Olympics, a fictional version of the 2026 Olympics where I decided to put them in Switzerland instead of Milan just for like creative freedom. And it follows a woman called Ari who becomes the first ever captain of Team GB's women's ice hockey to make it to the Olympics, because there's a great women's ice hockey team but they never made it to the Olympics. And so essentially in the book it follows her as she becomes captain and tries to navigate the pressure and the stress that comes with being one of the first and trying to represent both her country and her sport. And then she meets a guy called Drew at a New Year's Eve party 2 months before the Olympics begins, and she like has like a fun little like conversation with him on a rooftop and they're like, we'll never see each other again, and then they see each other again and then they end up at the Olympics.
That's so cute. Were there any like skills from your degree that you kind of took into your writing process?
I would say one thing, I can't remember the lecturer because she was I think she was a PhD student who was here for a second and then left, but she got us in like our first term of creative writing to really work on this idea of outlining a story. And she was like, these are like some of the key beats, this is like the inciting incident, the like dark night of the soul, all of that stuff. And she just kind of set us on like these little assignments to like take random story ideas, not our story ideas, and plot them out into a novel type form outline. And that has been like a guiding light for me ever since I started writing. And that whenever I have an idea, I'm like, okay, how does this fit into the outline? How do I break it down into different chapters? And it's been really good.
What was like the inspiration for your book? So I know I saw your video, you went ice skating as like a practice to see kind of how it actually works, how skating really works. What else did you kind of do? What was the inspiration for it?
So for the inspiration for the first book and the second book basically came from watching the Olympics and being really obsessed and being really intrigued by what life must be like inside the Olympic Village, because it's a place that very few people ever have an experience of. And I remember when I was like growing up and seeing the Olympics or seeing like professional athletes, I would think that, they're going to be really disciplined, really strict. When they're in the village, they don't do anything. They just like sit, train, sleep. And yes, they are very disciplined and they are very strict, but they're also young people in an exciting new environment, an exciting new city who have friends there. And like one thing that I learned, especially with the women's ice hockey, is they do so much of their intense training in the lead up to the Olympics that when they're in the village, they're like mostly doing rest. And because of that, everyone's like chatting and getting to meet new people and forming friendships. And so I just did lots of research about what it's like behind the scenes to kind of figure out how much free time they have and like what it's like forming friendships across countries in the same sports. So
really enjoyed that. So cute. How did you kind of like get the idea of doing the Olympics? Was it just like from your interest in it and then you just kind of done your research from there onwards?
It was literally that. I think when the 2020 Olympics that happened in 2021 happened, I was like at home in the middle of lockdown and I just remember seeing different TikToks from the Olympic Village essentially, and I was like, this is so fun, like I would love to see an Olympic Village rom-com, because when you like start to learn more about the Olympic Village and the athletes village in particular, you start to see that it's very much like a university campus in that it's hundreds of people between the ages of about 18 and 35 from all around the world, but with very similar values and ambitions all together. And I'm like, this is a campus university. This is a campus novel. So yeah, that's where it came from.
What was your like biggest challenge, would you say, writing this book, writing the novel, or just like in your writing journey and all of it? What was your biggest challenge?
Yeah, I think we have this idea when it comes to books or works of art generally that the first thing that you've got to do is got to be the best thing that you've got to do. And I think that kind of traps a lot of people into this idea of perfectionism and this fear of even getting started. So for me, when I started writing my first book, Let the Games Begin, I just went into it thinking, okay, I'm going to write a story for this person, like for the sake of writing the story and seeing what it's like to do this thing, to know that I can do this rather than it trying to be like the best novel that I've ever written. Because I was like, what, 23, 24? It's like, it's a bit like the best book of my life is going to come in my 60s. So for me, it was just this constant sense of having to overcome that fear of it needing to be perfect on the first go. But I think once you get over that hump, you're just able to do things. So, yeah.
And how did you kind of overcome that? Because I think that's a really big thing for authors and even writers in uni, out of uni, post-grad, whatever. That's a really, really big thing. We want everything to be perfect. So how did you kind of like overcome that?
Yeah. Have you ever listened to the podcast, This American Life?
Yeah.
Okay, so the host of it, love it. So the host of it, Ira Glass, he has this really great quote that I remember hearing when I was at university that's stuck with me ever since. And like, I'm going to paraphrase it. Basically what he says is that all of us who get into creative work, we do it because we've got good taste. But for the first few years of trying to do the thing, like our taste doesn't even come close to our abilities. Like you want to make a Greta Gerwig film and you are making like 7-year-old TikToks, you know what I mean? But the reason that you want to get to that level is because you love it, and the only way to be able to slowly make progress to overcome the gap between your abilities and your like aspirations is by doing lots of work frequently, putting yourself on a deadline, taking ego out of the equation. And for me, that's just been like this guiding principle throughout. I just think to myself, like, the only way for me to be able to ever write a good chapter is by writing lots of chapters often, so I can get good. So,
amazing. And how do you think writing either this book or a past book has kind of changed your perspective on writing or the writing process or even the industry?
Yeah, oh, that's a great question. I think one thing that's really interesting is I have a lot of my friends now are other writers, other authors, other people who work in like the creative industries, and it's just kind of reaffirmed this idea that like respectfully, like nobody's special. Do you know what I mean? It's just like they're just actually ordinary, regular people. Like I've been lucky to meet so many people whose work I really admire, who I think are incredible people who have been like brought down mystically, but they're just like regular people. And for me, that kind of takes away some of the pressure of feeling like, oh, the idea needs to come to you in a dream that's like like that kind of thing. Like takes away a little bit of the mysticism and makes it more about doing the work, doing the research, reading lots of books, watching lots of movies, and just like really seeing it as a craft rather than like something mystical and otherworldly. Even though it can feel like that way sometimes, but it's work. That's
the whole writing process. So you talked about meeting some of these people. How do you think your kind of community has helped you sort of form writing and about everything, the writing process? How do you think that's helped?
Yeah, I would say that writing in itself, that creative work, is quite a isolated experience, like not in a negative way. Most of it is just being sat on your laptop by yourself at home or in a library or something writing. But I think that all of the industry side of it is so helpful when you have other people who can give you advice. Like I remember when I was at uni, one of my creative writing lecturers, they once did like a hour-long talk where he was talking about like, this is how you get into the industry, here's how to get an agent, here's how to get a publisher, here's how to navigate sales, marketing, all of that stuff. And I think it's really good to have people to lean on that in that regard, because the way that I think about it is writing a novel or getting published, it's kind of like starting a new job but you don't have any colleagues. And so that's kind of how I see it.
Comparison.
And I'm just like, I don't know what to do. And like if you were in an office, there's someone next to you to help you, whereas when you're by yourself in your room, you don't. So I think it's so important to build that community, just to keep you sane.
And how do you think the community impacts like your writing? Like when you were in uni, we do like workshops and things like that, especially in English. How do you think that kind of helped guide you in a way?
100%. I think for me, with doing my creative writing minor on my degree, it was so helpful in that I just kind of took away any sense of like self-consciousness. I think when you sit by yourself and you come up with a story, it feels so precious, it feels so important and personal to you. But when you kind of have to throw it out to a group of 20 people who you half know, or like either really good friends with or are strangers to you, and they give you critique, you just get unself-conscious really quickly, and I think it's you like stop making it about you. It's like, oh, this isn't like something that I've led. It's a story that I've written that's open, that has to be open to critique so that it can get better. And I really enjoyed it.
Oh, I love that. That's so cute. Was there like a specific moment, whether in uni or post-grad, where you felt like, I'm a writer, this is like scary? Was there one moment that kind of like clicked for you?
Yeah, so it's a weird one, not a good one. So well basically I did my final year dissertation as a creative writing project. I think it was supposed to be 10,000 words, and I was so excited to start writing it, and then I started writing and I was like, oh, I'm out of my depth, and I was a little bit stressed, and I was like, I need to get a grad job, and I was like, I need something to de-stress me. And I did this thing, it's not really a thing anymore, called NaNoWriMo, where you try to write a novel in a month. And I was like, what if instead of working on my dissertation I write a novel in a month? And I did it, and I think it was literally like November 2019 where I just sat down, knuckled down, and just wrote a novel over the course of 6 weeks, and it was the most fun experience I ever had. Did my dissertation suffer as a result? If you like, it definitely suffered, because I was working on a random YA novel instead of the dissertation that I was supposed to write. But it was this realization that once you finish something, you realize that you actually can do it again. You can overcome that initial hurdle. So
I love that idea. How did you just come up with the idea to, you know, write a novel in a month? Where did you get these ideas from?
I think I just wanted to know that I could do it. Like I've always wanted to write a novel ever since I was a kid, and it was just this like big goal that kind of felt a little bit out of reach, and I was like, I need to make this feel a bit like more bite-sized. I need to feel like there's a difference between writing a novel and then writing a good novel. Do you know what I mean? I was like, I just need to write a novel and then learn that like most of the process is editing. Like editing is like, I will spend maybe 6 weeks doing a draft, like a really messy, disgusting draft, and then 2 years editing it. Do you know what I mean? So it's just that process of just being able to, it was just this desire to try something and not be too attached to the outcome.
I love that. You mentioned before how you feel like the writing process is quite lonely, and coming back to this thing of community, do you think the community helps that in a way? And do you think life or like the writing thing is more lonely after uni, like post-grad?
Oh, that's a good question. I think when I was at uni, I was writing recreationally. Like I didn't have any, I had hopes and dreams of being published, but it wasn't something I was thinking about when I was going to lectures. And I think when you're at university, you have this built-in community based on creativity. But after university, most people, you know, I got a job. Like, you do work. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, exactly. And you're writing maybe in like a little bit of time in the evenings or a little bit of time in the weekends, and so you have to be so much more intentional about it because it's not built in. And so for me, that was the thing I had to actively go out and find that I didn't have initially. Like I always say, like when my first book was published, I had 2 writer friends, and they were both people I met within the 6 months before publishing the book. So that was a really interesting experience of like, I don't know what's going on, and then figuring it out as the book was close to getting published.
So to come back to your book, was there like a specific character, specific scene or plot line that you really connected to, and why did you connect to them?
Yes, I would say with my second book, Skate So You Make It, my main character, she gets thrown into this position of being a team captain. Like her old team captain gets injury, and they're like, Ari, we need you to do this now. And she is terrified. And it's not because she's not good at what she does. She is like great. She's made it into the Olympic team. Like she's really good at what she does, and like she has a good relationship with her friends, even though it's getting complicated by the fact that she's kind of their boss now. But I think one of the things that she struggles with, and my main male character Drew struggles with, is this sense of, and I think I've kind of like touched on it already, this sense of wanting to be perfect to the point where you're so scared that you don't even try. Like Drew, the main male character, he wants to be a photographer, and he like drops out of uni. Oh, is that a spoiler? No, it's not a spoiler. It comes in the first 2 chapters. He like he drops out of university. He's like kind of stops working on like the photography dreams that he has. He starts to detach himself, because I think there is that idea that sometimes we feel like, you know, when you put your all into something and it doesn't work out, it stings. And I think that sometimes we might have the tendency to not put our all into it, so that if the outcome isn't what we wanted it to be, we can be like, well, I didn't put that much work into it. Like it didn't work out. It's this self-sabotage of like, let me shoot myself in the foot so that I can say that that's the reason why it happened, rather than accepting the fact that it's not going to work out. And I found that like, it was an idea that I was writing intentionally. Like I was like, I want to explore this idea. And as you write, you're like, oh wait, to what extent is this a thing that I'm thinking about, a thing that I'm working through, this thing of like, let me quit while I'm ahead so it doesn't hurt too much. And I found that through my writing, in that I feel like, even though it's something that's under there anyway, but I'm always comfortable with overcoming any fears or worries I have attached to it, because I just want it so much. You know what I mean? I'm like, I want this more than I'm scared of it going wrong.
So as well, I feel like there's always this just one scene or one character that is just like, this is me. How do you feel like you kind of, or if you did, implement yourself into the book, into a character, and do you think readers will be able to relate to it because of that?
Yeah, so I make a really concerted effort for my characters not to be me, because I feel like if I were, at some point I'm going to write a book where the character is me, but I feel like if I were to write a character that was me, I wouldn't be able to notice the character's blind spots. Like when I am plotting out a character and planning them, I'm like, what are their flaws? What do they want? What do they need? All of that kind of stuff. And I think in order for me to do that well, I have to be outside of myself and be creating a character, because I know for me, like, and for everybody, I think we understand ourselves and know ourselves, but we're not really understanding our like underlying patterns. But one thing that is like probably consistent through all of my characters, both my male characters, my female characters, and my side characters, is this sense of like, I don't know what's going on. Like all of my characters are, I'm in my late 20s, but all of my characters are in their early 20s. Because I think like, you're here, like at university, like your university years, your early 20s, there's just this time in your life where you are finally having these adult experiences, but you don't really know what to do with them yet, if that makes sense. Like you have this idea of the person you want to be, but you're still in that like identity constriction phase. And so I really wanted to write characters who were having those like mini crises the way that I am having them. So I think about my books as I don't know, I used to call them quarter life fiction, because I'm like, you're 23 and you've just gone out of uni and you're trying to like, even though it's different with these characters, because my character's grad job that they're trying to get is like, I want to get into the Olympics, that kind of thing, but it is still that relatable version of just trying to figure it out when you're in your early 20s.
Is there like a specific, without giving any spoilers, is there a specific scene that you're really excited for readers to read, or a specific scene that you really liked writing, and why? Yeah,
so the specific scene is one that I'm going to read later on today in the alumni reading. And okay, so I really love the Olympics. And one thing that I really love about the Olympics is this idea of having a global experience. This idea of someone who's in like Qatar, someone who's in Paris, someone who's in Nairobi, someone who's in Minnesota, these people from all around the world who are never going to meet each other, having this experience of watching this historic moment play out together. And that is a thing that I've put a few times in my first book, where we have these moments where the Olympic opening ceremony is happening, and it's like, and you never, these aren't characters that are part of the story, but I'll just like mention a family in Spain, and then like a couple in Australia, and the things that they're doing leading up to watching this experience, or what happens while they watch the 100-meter sprint. Just 'cause I love that. I think oftentimes with books, especially books about people with really interesting lives, we focus on the athlete or the politician or the person with a big life, but so many of us are fans. We're like audience, we're spectators. I'm not an athlete, but I sit and watch it, and I like being able to turn the like camera lens, the chapter, onto like the reader. So yeah, I really enjoy that.
Just to kind of like round it all off, is there a piece of advice that you would give to your younger self, maybe your younger self at Surrey? What is something you would say to maybe your little fresher self?
Yes, it's so interesting being here in Stag Radio, because I literally started I work as a podcast producer now, it's my job, but I started off here, like literally in that studio, making this podcast called Starting is the Hardest Part. And so I would essentially just like interview random people across campus, like not people who done like big incredible things. Would be like, hey, like Sophie, you've started a poetry blog, can I interview you? Because I think it's really cool that you've just even started this thing. Like, it's not about when you do the big thing or get the big deal, all of that stuff. And it was so helpful for me, because I think like starting is the hardest part. It's that ability to be able to be like, okay, I'm not 100% sure I know how to do this thing. I don't necessarily have all the resources or the high-tech equipment or the time or the space, but just putting a little bit of like, putting 10 minutes a day into writing, putting an hour a week into like a craft that you're into. That is the advice that I would give my younger self. That is the thing that at some point I must have internalized to do things. It's like, you never look back on your life and regret starting. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's that thing of like, you start something and it could go terribly wrong, but the sooner you do that, the quicker you like accelerate that learning curve. So yeah, I would just say like, stop putting off the starting, because the starting is the thing that can help lead you to the place that you want to be.
So just again, to round it all off, you have got a question from Thomas Sinkingson, and he wants to know, looking back on your published novel or post-release, what would you do differently, and what will you be taking into your next piece of work?
Oh, that's a great question. I think I could talk about my first and then my second. Okay, basically with my first one, at the end of that like publishing summer, I was like, next time I'm gonna go bigger. I'm gonna do more things.
Go big, go
I'm gonna go everywhere and do everything.
Yeah.
I've done that this year. Like I went to the Winter Olympics, I went to New York to go and like experience like life with my publishers there. I'm here, I'm doing all these events, and I think it's that thing of treating each moment like a celebration. Because like I think about my graduation, for example, I had like COVID graduation, but then I had one the year after, a proper one. And I was like, I look back and think I should have thrown a party. I should have done more of that. And I think it is that thing of celebrating each of life achievements more. So I'm glad that I've done that. And then the next book, I think the next era or whatever I write next will be more about like taking my time. Because when I was writing my first 2 books, it was like, oh, I just need to get to the end to know that I've done it. Whereas now I'm like, I can take my time. I know this is the thing that I can do. I don't know if that next idea I'm going to do but I'd like to take my time, because I have found that writing is the most fun part of the publishing process. So I really want to savor that.
And what about your third book?
Third book. I don't know. I think it's a mixture of that, of like taking my time a little bit more with it. And then really like, I think it's the same thing, like really savoring the fun. Like my favorite part, I always say, like I joke with the people who I work with in publishing, that in an ideal world, I would just be making Pinterest boards and Spotify playlists. Like I actually, I'm just like staring into the distance, imagining the story play out. And I really want to savor that a bit more and just really enjoy the process before the writing of the novel.
So what is a question that you would have for the next alumni that we'll be interviewing today?
I think it would be, oh my goodness, what is the most valuable lesson you've learned from trying and failing?
Very inspirational.
But then like eventually like it leads you to somewhere. So
thank you so much for joining me today. It's been an absolute pleasure, and the nostalgia of Stag Radio.
I know, it's weird. I'm having a trip, like it's crazy in here.
I love it. So thank you guys so much for watching this episode of It Started at Surrey. Don't forget to follow and like, and obviously go read Skate It Till You Make It. It's amazing.
Thank you so much.
And go join the alumni event that's happening today at 5 p.m. That's the one. So thank you so much for watching. I've been your host, Sofia Varela, and today I'm joined with
Rufaro Faith Mazarua.
Yay! Thank you guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.